Welcome back to the Simple Farmhouse Life podcast. Today I'm bringing on a special guest, Kate from Modern Day Settler. Kate is a fascinating individual to follow over on Instagram. She has the most beautiful farmstead over in Massachusetts. It's a 18th century farmhouse and property. She makes her own yarn on a loom and she milks goats. Just such a beautiful life. And I really wanted to bring her on to talk about her inspiration, her property, and just share any wisdom that she may have with us. So let's dive into the interview. My name is Lisa, mom of 6 and creator of the blog and YouTube channel Farmhouse on Boone. Join me as I share with you my love for creating a handmade home from scratch cooking and a little mom and entrepreneur life along the way. Tell us a little bit about your Instagram. How long have you been doing Instagram?
Oh gosh. I want to say I joined 4 years ago. I think it was. Yeah.
Well, our paths just crossed because I don't know how I've never encountered your Instagram before.
Well, it's not like I'm ultra popular, so
I know, but it's just right in my what I'd be interested in.
Yeah.
So it's my friend Sarah Jo from Briarton Farm. We actually had the opportunity to visit each other's farms and farmhouses, and she was telling me, she's like, "Oh, you would love the Modern Day Settler." And I was like, "Oh, tell me more."
I'm sure it's the stove. She always tells me that is the number one reason why she started following me.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk about her. You have a name for her, but so you started about 4 years ago. Obviously you wanted to document. I mean, you have farm stuff, pigs, sheep, goats. I mean,
yeah. I mean, it's really kind of funny because I actually started that account. Okay, so now that I'm talking about it, I'm kind of remembering a little bit more. So I started my Instagram account, I want to say it was 3 to 4 months before we purchased the house that we live in right now.
okay.
And so at that point, I had gardened and I canned and I did all that stuff. And I always had laying hens. I had laying hens for years up until that point. But I had never raised goats, sheep, pigs, donkeys, nothing, and then so I just kind of was like, hey, this seems like a really good way to kind of document some stuff. So I started doing it, and then I have this problem where I just keep piling things on, and so it just kind of snowballed out of control. Not out of control, but it snowballed once we bought this place, and that's when I got into the goats, and then that turned into milking, and then that turned into raising feeder pigs, and then I was like, well, I want to breed my own, and then we got sheep, and so
it really does have a way of leading one thing to another, because I was thinking about that. We just got our first cow, and she's actually a heifer. She's not a cow. She's 4 months old. And I was thinking, oh, we're going to get so much milk when that time comes in a couple of years. We're going to need pigs so we can feed the pigs with the whey. And it just leads to another once you start going on it.
Oh, absolutely. It has a way of doing that. And just you get more capable, you get more confident, and then you're like, well, if I'm doing this, it's actually not that more to do this too. Plus I get, all of the added benefits of this other animal. So
right,
it all ties together.
And like you said, people see where you are now, and to them it's like you just did this, but really it's been over 4 years of time. You've been adding on a little bit more knowledge and more animals, and it's just become something that's built on each other. So it's not like you just were making mozzarella cheese and weaving your own fibers, all of this stuff.
Right. I didn't move in with a semi full of animals and all this stuff ready to go. So
tell us about your house. I know you're over on the east, correct?
Yes. Yep. I'm in north central Massachusetts. It's about an hour and a half west of Boston. And it's just this place that I don't really still understand kind of how it managed to fall into our lap. It was just one of those weird situations where it all just kind of worked out and the timing was right. The house is 18th century, so it was built in 1798. So this year it's 222 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's an old colonial, center hall colonial, and we have 10.5 acres.
Oh, that's the perfect amount.
Yeah, it's a good size. It would be better if the land was cleared, but unfortunately that has been a huge part of our work here, which probably was a big reason why it kind of took us time to evolve with the animals, because the animals have been beneficial to us for land clearing. This place used to be a 350-acre farm that was all pasture and, some woods, but people stopped working the land and it all just kind of grew back up and the woods took over. And
that's exactly where we are, like currently.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like we have 7 acres, but we don't have any pasture. It's as woodsy as it can be. Pretty much any time but summer, we can go down in that area. But right now, most of our ground isn't even accessible because it's that overgrown.
Yep. That's exactly the position that we are in, but we are just a little bit further ahead than you.
3 or 4, or how long have? Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was 4 years this month that we bought it. So we've been clearing for 4 years.
And what animals did you find were helpful for that?
Oh gosh. So the goats were extremely beneficial because we had a mix of either, it was either really dense, thick, overgrown and unhealthy forest, which is predominantly what we're dealing with here. And then it was also just brush and thorny brush riddled with poison ivy that it would take you forever to clear by hand, and then it just wants to grow right back. And this is New England we're talking about, so there are boulders and rocks, and you can't drive in with a tractor and a brush hog. Like that, it's not an option. So that's why we originally got goats, was to help clear so we could even see what we were dealing with, as far as ground goes. And then the pigs, they go in the woods, they turn over the soil, they eat roots, they work around the stumps, which allows you to more easily get them out when you drop the trees. And then they just disturb the native seed beds that are lying dormant in the soil. And then you would not believe the grass that grows in there, and you didn't even have to seed it. It's unbelievable. Oh, yeah.
Okay. See, we haven't actually even let our goats loose on it yet because we still don't have it fenced in.
Yeah.
So we haven't even been able to get to that point. Luke spent a lot of time last year clearing like by hand, and he even rented some tools or like a whatever kind of tractor you use for the day. And it doesn't even, I don't know, honestly, I'd hate to say this to him, but like I don't even feel like this exact moment I can even tell where he was.
Oh gosh. So and he probably put hours into it.
Oh yeah, he definitely did.
Yeah, that's tough. I know your pain though. I totally know your pain. It's long and it's frustrating, and it seems like it's never gonna happen. But when you get that first area fully cleared and grass is there, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this was woods.
So how does your husband, like, is this his dream as well, or has it been more of yours?
No, so he grew up on a small, kind of a farm. His parents, they raise beef. And so they've always had a few steers, and they would do turkeys. But I take everything to like the nth degree. So
yes, you do.
So it was, him and I, he loves it. He does. He loves it. It's just funny because things wouldn't have happened as quickly or probably to the extent that they have if it was him pushing it along.
I think it's the same with me and my husband. He loves it, but he never would have done it.
Right.
So totally the same thing.
Absolutely. It's like just that little push. You need the push to be like, oh, hey, by the way, I found this sheep. Like, we need to get these sheep for this, and this reason. And he always tells me I can talk him into anything because I'm so well researched and have all of my talking points in order that he really
Hey, you know how to
Have
do
no
it. How long have you guys been married? You clearly know how to do this thing.
Yeah, well, we've been married for 5 years, so
Yeah, you know how to make it to where it's beneficial for both of you and he understands what's
right,
going on.
right.
So how many goats do you have?
I have 4 does, and then I have 1 buck and 1 wether, his little buddy companion.
Okay. So are you milking? How many are you milking
I
currently?
just dried off my 1 Nigerian that kidded this spring because we are going to be moving her and her daughter. They're, buddies, and they are very easy to move, much easier than my Nubians. So I dried her off so that we could use her for land clearing, because we have like some stone walls that are getting brushy and just some areas that really need attention. And I didn't want to have to like shuffle her back and forth to milk. And my Nubian's giving me more than enough milk. So I was like, I'll dry her off and then I can use her for clearing. So right now I'm just milking my 1 Nubian.
Okay. And how much does she give you? Are you kid sharing?
Yes. We
Okay.
did retain her doeling. So the doeling is on her all day. So when I go to milk her at night, I mean, there's like nothing there because the baby is just still nursing.
Okay.
But I do milk in the morning because I don't separate her because I don't have anybody to separate her with. So I tape up my dough, her udder, well, her teeth. Yeah.
Oh, I've never heard about this before.
I honestly, I must have like the laziest goat kid because she doesn't even try. It's just I put Band-Aids over the teats. That's it. 1 band.
Seriously, every night you just put a Band-Aid?
Over each one. And then she's fully engorged in the morning. The baby didn't even try. It's like she probably looks at it and is like, too much work.
That's not right. Yeah. So how old is your doeling?
She was born in March.
Okay, June, July. So she's the same age. She's a little bit younger than what we have. 3. We have 2 bucklings and a doeling, and they were born in April. So they're still obviously sharing, but I separate mine at night. But I guess you're not doing that because she's
right.
all alone.
Yeah, she wouldn't. So I did separate her when I had the Nigerian kids from my other doe that kidded this spring. So when she had little goat kids to sleep with, I did separate her with them. But I sold all those babies, so now I don't want her to sleep alone, Okay. So she can sleep with mom this way.
Didn't think about that.
Yeah, so she can sleep with mom this way, and then I still get all the milk in the morning. So
okay, so with that breed that you have, how much do you end up getting in the morning?
Well, she is now she hit her peak and she's kind of now starting to come back down. Plus this heat that we've been getting is not helping things at all. But in peak, I was getting 3/4 of a gallon from her just in the morning. Yeah. So okay. You think if I didn't have the baby, if I had sold the baby, that would be 1.5 gallons a day.
I'm milking a Saanen mixed with the Nigerian dwarf. So she's really small. So I get 1 quart. That's all I get. 1 quart a day.
Yeah, but it's probably really creamy with a Nigerian cross. I bet there's a good amount of butter fat in that, probably.
I guess. It doesn't really rise to the top, which actually this is something I was going to talk to you about. If you know, I was under the impression that since goat milk is naturally homogenized or way more than cow's milk, that you couldn't make butter from it. But then somebody told me recently that's totally not true. So do you make butter?
I do not, and that's just because my Nubian, her milk doesn't have enough a high enough butter fat percentage that it's just not worth it. There's just not much cream in there. But you can. I have in the past.
And do you have to use a cream separator, or how do people do that?
I have a cream separator that I run it through.
There you go.
But people say, and I know this is true because it's happened. Everybody has that milk that they kind of forget that jar's in the fridge, and it gets pushed to the back accidentally, and then like a week later, you pull it out, and you're like, oh, I didn't know that this was in there. And it has a thicker cream. It actually has cream on the top. So it will separate. It's just not like a dairy cow that it's going to separate in 12 to 24 hours. It takes days for it to separate.
And that would make sense that I've never seen it because we don't get enough with I have 6 kids. So we don't get enough to like leave it in the back of the fridge to forget it.
Right.
You know, it's not enough.
Yeah, but
so that's never
I
happened.
have a friend that has a Nigerian that is a wonderful milker, high production and very, very high butter fat percentage. And she would make butter. We called it gutter. Out of her
goat butter.
Out of her goat's milk. She would, run it through the separator, and it was totally fine. You really need the butter fat there.
Well, that's good to know. I never really thought about buying a cream separator for the goats. I'm going to be milking goats for 2 years until Bessie, that's our 4-month-old heifer, until like she can give us milk. So I'm in the goat business for a while.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm going to be, at some point, I'm going to be following suit. My husband and I, we talk about that eventually we will get a dairy cow when it makes sense as far as like land availability and pasture. It just doesn't make sense for us right now because we're fighting tooth and nail for every square foot that we have. The goats work for us for land clearing too, so it's really hard to do with that.
Right. It's true. That's why we need the next 2 years, honestly. We're not ready for her to be a full-blown, we're just ready to have a heifer. That's it. Yep. So, oh man, so much to learn. I am so new to this world of goats, but I'm one of those people, I don't know if you're like this, but I like to learn by just doing rather than reading about it. So I like got goats and then now I'm figuring the whole thing out.
Yep. That is exactly how I am. Learn through experience. You can read all you want about kidding and, what can happen and what can go wrong, and until you actually do it and you have to intervene and you have to assist and all those things, that's where the learning comes in, is by doing.
Oh yeah, totally, with everything. So, okay, I want to transition over to, hold on, I have to remember what the name is.
Lady Crawford.
What's your name? Lady Crawford. So I'm looking through your Instagram. Lady Crawford makes a lot of appearances. I also see that you might have like a brick oven type of situation for pizza as well.
Yeah.
Let's hear about your cooking. So you have she's a wood. You have to use wood, right?
So it's an 1898 Villa Crawford cook stove. Okay. It is a wood burning cook stove.
Do you have another stove, or is
No,
this
I do have another stove. Okay. And basically they each get a half a year off. So
right now I'm sure Lady Crawford is taking a break.
She is. I'm not pumping heat into the house via wood stove in the middle of summer. I use the other stove or, the grill, cook outside. And then in the winter time, that stove, the Lady Crawford, my Villa, is going nonstop because it's a source of heat for us. And that's what I cook on. So it has an oven in it, and it has, the burners on top, and it's just my absolute prized possession.
So where did you find it? It's gorgeous. Yeah. If you haven't seen it and you're listening to this, definitely go over on Instagram to the Modern Day Settler. It won't take you long to scroll back and see the stove. But yeah, where'd you find it?
It's kind of a funny story. We came to look at this house, right? The house that we live in now. And it was the first showing. Actually, yeah, we only did one showing. And so we came, we're walking around the house. We're, doing the whole bit inside. And then time to go out and check out the garage. So we walk into the garage, and there's a stair. It's a 2-bay garage, and it has stairs that go up into a loft. So we walk in, and underneath these stairs, I see this rusty, dusty thing that has boxes heaped up all over it. And it immediately caught my eye. And I started looking at it. I was like, oh my gosh, that's a cook stove. I had no idea about cook stoves. Like, I didn't know really anything about brands or, what's good, what's not good, how they operate really. Like, I didn't know anything about them. I nudged our real estate agent, who's my husband's cousin. Her name's Crystal. And I was like, Crystal, that thing's staying with the house. At this point, I already decided that we were...
Put this in the contract.
At this point, I had already decided we were buying the place. So I said to Crystal, I was like, this thing's staying with the house. I was like, I don't care, like, what we got to do. I was like, but this thing's staying. We got to make it work. And she's like, okay. So we did. Fast forward a little while. We move in. so busy with the house, and the place was an absolute mess, and the land, of course. And finally, I kind of go out to the garage and I'm looking at this stove, and I was like, man, I really would love to learn more about this thing and get it restored. So I Google and find a local antique stove restoration guy, give him a call, and I'm telling him about this stove. I'm like, yeah, it's a Villa Crawford. And he goes, Villa? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, well, what's the number say on the back left of it? Like, he's asking me all these questions. He's like, does it have this shelf on the top? And I'm like, yeah, it does. Well, this has a shelf on the right. Like, everything I told him, I could tell he kind of didn't believe me. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what's going on here? And so he has me email him some photos of the stove, and he comes right back and he's like, wow, you have a rare piece of history there. He's been doing this for like 40 some years, and mine is the third he's ever seen. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, and then one of the things that make it so rare too is how complete it is, because you got to think about these things get shuffled in and out of garages and barns.
Oh, you have the shelf, the thing on top, like all
everything they get bumped off and lost or broken, and so I couldn't believe it. So then I saved for 2 years
for the restoration price
to have it completely restored. And I mean, she needed it bad, to bring it back to looking like the day that it left the foundry. And
he did a beautiful job. Like, it looks like he even, like, it's that what is it, a temperature? Is that a thermostat type of thing or not? I know it's not like a thermostat.
It's a temperature gauge. Yeah.
Okay, temperature gauge on the front and everything.
The thing that's so amazing is it works.
Gosh.
Not only does it work, but it's not clouded. And he said that a lot of, not the Villa, obviously, just stoves in general, old antique stoves that have these temperature gauges, he's like, they hardly ever work. And mine works.
Wow. So you can actually like bake bread and everything in yours.
Yep. It makes the best.
Because I always wondered that when you read old books, like, how did they regulate the temperature? And I know that either way, it's never exact. Like, we had a vintage stove, not really an antique stove, restored for our kitchen. And when he was testing it, he was like, people think that it just stays at 350 when really, it's just ranging between 330 and then it kicks back on and goes to 370. It's never at 350.
Right. You're taking an average. That's the average.
Yes, exactly. I think we just expect that it somehow like magically stays there when there's really no way for that to happen. It just
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, mine doesn't even have temperature. It's slow, quick, fast. That's the gauge on the front. Okay. It's all about a feel, that's for sure.
Does it basically does like a fan of some kind kick it up to where it goes hotter?
Nope.
And then, or is it all regulated?
Nope. It's all It's all the fire. 100% the fire. If you want to crank it up, it's all about getting a hotter fire. It's about opening up the damper on the back or closing the damper on the back. They call it 2 different modes. They call it bake and kindle. So kindles when you open up the stovepipe and basically it's sucking it up the chimney, and that's really like getting it hot and getting it going. But then when you want to divert your heat, basically, rather than from going up your chimney, you change your damper to bake, and it circulates around the stove. So if you take a string and you follow the path that the heat goes from the firebox over the oven, down, around, back, up, and out the flue, or out the pipe, out the back, it's like, I'd have to look, I have it written down, but I want to say it's like 8 feet. If you were to take a string and measure that path, and then you pulled the string out and measured it, it's 8 linear feet. I mean, that's why these things are so efficient, because it's like a big radiator, a big cast iron radiator.
It's so cool. And so you don't really find that it's that difficult to learn how to cook in it?
No, I mean, it certainly helps if you're used to wood stoves.
Right. And I am. Like, we've always heated with wood, and I know what you mean when you have to let the open up the little box underneath to let some air through if you want it hot, or you want it to close it all down and go to bed at night. Like there's definitely a little learning curve with it.
So if you have experience heating with wood with a wood stove, you might burn some things at first, or it might take you a while to get the stove heated up or the oven up to where you want. Kind of learning how the stove works, but it's definitely a learning curve, no question. Plus, it's not like you said with the your vintage stove. These things aren't instant. You don't suddenly open up the draft and the fire immediately gets 200 degrees hotter. It's these things take some time.
Yeah.
It's just a different style of cooking altogether.
If I had a place for if I had an extra chimney or somewhere where I could have 2 stoves, I would be like looking on eBay right now.
Yeah, they're awesome. They really are.
Yeah, because we're getting a wood stove. In fact, I probably could have, because we're getting a wood stove for heat put in really any day now. Actually, the guy's coming this week. I never thought about that. I could make it like a cook stove too.
Some other really models cool. They do allow you to cook on, like my parlor stove. It's actually a Crawford as well. It has 2 heating pans on top as well, so it's like good for if I have like spaghetti that I just want to let simmer all day. If it's not cold enough that maybe I don't have the kitchen stove going for whatever reason, the option is there. You could just put it on that stove instead.
Oh yeah, I spotted your parlor stove on one of these photos, and I was like, oh, that's pretty too.
Yep, it's the mate
gorgeous
to the kitchen stove.
Cool. So okay, let's talk a little bit about, and I won't keep you too much longer, but let's talk a little bit about your fibers. This is something that, a lot of people milk goats, a lot of people garden, but I've never seen anybody take and do that. So how long has that been a hobby of yours?
Very, very new. I learned how to knit last October.
And now you're just making your own yarn.
Well, I said I have a problem. So.
Right. You have to go further.
My best friend taught me how to knit because she pretty much told me, what's the matter with you? You, of all people, why do you not knit? So she taught me the basics of knitting, which then I kind of became totally engrossed in and obsessed with. And then another one of my friends saw how much I was loving knitting. Her mother used to spin, and her mother has since passed away, but she has no interest in fiber or anything like that. So she wanted the spinning wheel to go to someone that she knew would like love it and care, and thought at the very least, she's like, it will look awesome in your house. So she gave me this spinning wheel. So then I started spinning like right between Christmas and January. So 2 months after I learned how to knit. And then I got a loom for my birthday.
Wow.
Yeah. So very new to all of it. And it is quite possibly one of the coolest things. All of them are awesome.
Yeah. No, that is awesome. So I didn't look too far into this. Do you dye it and make different colors?
No. So at this point for the spinning, for instance, I have not carded and spun my own roving yet. To make yarn, the ideal fiber is your fall fleece because it's the cleanest and it's the best.
Okay.
Fleece that you shear in the spring, it tends to be kind of grimy and grubby because the animal's been eating hay, and so there's all kinds of vegetable matter in it, or it's just dirty from them being in the barn, and as opposed to summer when they're outside on grass, it's just a lot cleaner. Okay. I have not spun my own sheep's fiber yet. At this point, I have purchased it's called roving, which it's like basically the yarn that has been washed and carded and cleaned and all that stuff. But I did knit my first cow neck out of yarn that I spun. So I bought the roving, I spun the yarn, and then I knitted something out of it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That was cool. It was pretty cool.
I love sewing and I love making things, but I'm never going to the beginning, like the actual beginning of the whole process. I usually just buy the fabric.
It really gives you a whole different level of appreciation once you start to do it. Because when I started knitting, I was like, oh, this is so cool. I'm making my own sweater. And then I was thinking to myself, man, my ultimate goal now is to take my fleece from my Icelandics and then spin the yarn to then knit the sweater.
Right.
That's my
yes.
ultimate goal.
That's
ultimate goal. It's a fisherman's sweater knitted out of my hand spun Icelandic yarn.
So when are we going to see it?
I was
Maybe
gonna
next
say, I think
year?
I'm a couple years away from that though.
Okay.
Because that's a lot
Oh,
of
wow.
a lot of yarn. You need a lot of fleece to make that too.
You see why it cost like a couple months of someone's pay back in the day to get a sweater or a dress. It wasn't like it cost, an hour of your work, which is what it is now. Like you can make $20 in an hour. You can buy a dress for $20.
Yeah.
But back in the day, it was like 2 months of pay to, makes complete sense.
Which is why they
How
had
could it not
like
be?
three articles of clothing.
And they did their laundry right. Like I don't have to worry about sorting because it doesn't matter. If my kids get really dirty in their clothes and then I throw it in the wash with the darks and the lights, it's like it's a dime a dozen,
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But they actually took care of everything because when you see that process from start to finish,
oh, absolutely,
you're not going to just throw stuff away.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
And to even think that for now my weaving, I've started weaving with my loom. I'm making these towels right now, and all I can think is, okay, someone would then, not a towel but fabric that I made on my loom, someone would then take that and then sew whatever, a dress or
right,
whatever it might be. It just blows my mind.
It does when you see how much actually goes into all of that.
Mm-hmm. It's incredible.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Kate, for talking. Is there anything else that you want to tell everyone about I'm obviously going to tell them to go follow you over on Modern Day Settler. Now, you also have a blog, and I went and looked at your berry goat milk ice cream, and I want to make it.
The frozen yogurt?
Maybe that's what it is. It's like a berry thing.
Strawberry.
I clicked over right away, and I was like, I have to make this.
I binged on that pretty hard this summer in peak strawberry season. We were eating it every single day.
Yeah, frozen. That's right. Frozen goat's milk yogurt. Go-gurt is what you're calling it. Fro-yogo.
Yeah, fro-yogo. I guess I can't use go-gurt because technically that's a copyright name.
That's a thing. Okay. Well, you spelled it G-O-A.
Yeah,
so.
go-gurt. I have a lot of, just information on there. That's where I try to document as much as I can, successes and failures and how to artificially inseminate a pig and, just everything from that and hand milking and anything I kind of get my hands into and I get involved in. I try to document as much as possible just so that I hope people see that, I didn't come out of the box this way. Like this is just stuff that I have learned because I want to learn and I want to do, and anyone else can too.
Definitely. I've had a few people on, we've talked about like this kind of thing because I think sometimes people think you're born into a farming family, you're born into a homesteading type of family. And I've met so many people through Instagram, mostly over the last several years, who had the desire to do it and then just made that happen, whether or not they were, they have a huge budget, whether or not it's really just the desire. Because I built my farmhouse on Boone blog and I had chickens and a garden all on a 1/4 acre. We've only recently moved here. So you can even do a lot without having 10 acres.
Right. Exactly. You can do something on, very little. You may not be able to raise everything, but you can do something and you can do a lot. If you have it planned accordingly and you maximize your space and plan it out.
Your space and what you have, what resources you have.
Absolutely. You can do a lot. You can 100%. I don't know if it's that some people are just, like you said, they aren't born into it, which neither was I. They think, well, I didn't grow up doing it, so I can't learn now. Or they're, for whatever reason, they're just afraid to just do it. Just try it,
Because you will fail.
Right, absolutely.
That's the thing. You said you share your successes and your failures.
Yep.
And I know I've had plenty of them too.
Absolutely.
I like, though, following along with people like you. When you share both, you show the dreamy parts of it and the parts that aren't and just everything you're learning. And your blog, I'm looking at it now, is absolutely beautiful, by the way. So yeah, themodernDaySettler.com. the Modern Day Settler on Instagram, and then I forget, do you have a YouTube?
I do, but I am not a frequent poster on that. Honestly, I just kind of use it as a way to put, like, so for instance, you know, the video that I had posted that walks you through everything you need to know and how to artificially inseminate. You know, I couldn't self-post a 10-minute long video. So I used YouTube for that. So it's not something that I'm really good at, but it is there just for the videos that I do make, even though it's kind of far and few between.
Yeah. Cool. So many places to find you and follow along. I highly recommend checking out your Instagram. It's a beautiful gallery. Again, thank you so much for joining me on here and sharing your experience.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Simple Farmhouse Life podcast. Make sure to go check out my friend Kate over at Modern Day Settler. Also, if you do not yet have access to the Farmhouse on Boone subscriber library, make sure to get that. I have all of my free ebooks and printables in one place that will be helpful for you to get started on your simple living journey. You can get that at farmhouseonboone.com/farmhouse resources. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Simple Farmhouse Life podcast, and I'll see you in the next one.